Hey everybody, welcome to this December 2021 iteration of the Captivating Conversations lecture series here at the Old Idaho Penitentiary, part of the Idaho State Historical Society. Captivating Conversations is our bi-monthly lecture series featuring special guests from the world of corrections, folks who knew the site in its heyday, and folks who have special expertise relating to our exhibits and programs. And so we're very fortunate today to have Jeff Kirkman with the Idaho Department of Corrections. You are the programs manager out at the site, one of them. So Jeff Kirkman earned an associate degree in general education from BYU, Idaho, and a bachelor's degree in political science from Boise State University. He has served as an instructor at the Peace Officers Standards and Training Academy in Meridian, and is a graduate of Idaho Certified Public Manager Program. I'm hoping to do that soon, so I have to bug you. He joined the Idaho Department of Corrections in 2001. And he has worked as a paralegal, management assistant, contract monitor, and warden at the women's prison in Pocatello for a year in 2014. His current position is the Idaho Department of Corrections program manager. And he's the statewide coordinator for access to religious activities and volunteers for IDOC. Yeah. So I'd love it if you'd, just kind of start by saying a little about yourself and what your job entails outside of the bio.
Sure.
Yeah.
So currently, program manager, and what I do with the department for most of my time is I manage a pretty unique program in the Department of Correction, one that we've never done before. Started it about 5 years ago when I came back from Pocatello as a warden, and that's our Free to Succeed community mentoring program. And so that's a statewide thing, and I run all over the state trying to keep balls in the air and this program going.
Sure.
And then the other, I still oversee the volunteers and the religious services in all of our facilities. So the Free to Succeed program like I said, it's a unique program, and we match mentors in the community with folks that are returning to the community from incarceration.
Sure.
And it just gives that some extra support and some really interpersonal type of relationship with those folks that are coming out of prison.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, with what we do, it seems like it's probably a super challenging but also extremely rewarding.
It is one of the best things that I've done in the department.
Yeah,
I love it.
And I think the Free to Succeed program is at least how we heard about what you guys do and everything, because I remember I think I've had that brochure bouncing around my desk for a bit. I'm going to kind of dig into
Absolutely.
What you do and ask you some questions, starting with just how did you get into the field of corrections? What brought you into this world?
It was, I always say that I was tricked into starting with the department. And I was actually working at Micron in 2001. I just finished up my degree, and I was working on a paralegal certificate at Boise State, and I took a corrections law class from one of our deputy attorney general, and Stephanie Altig. Okay. And she was our DAG for corrections. Happened to be teaching the class, found it fascinating. And then one day I was driving home from work from Micron, and she called me out of the blue and said, I set up an interview with you and Dan Mahoney, who was a deputy warden out of our South Idaho Correctional Institution. And so out of respect to Stephanie, I went to the interview, and that's how I got started. So I do. I always think that she tricked me into working for the department, because that was the furthest thing from my career path was corrections.
It was fate. It was
it must have been
someone they saw that in you.
Yeah.
Well, what does the Department of Corrections have as far as a philosophy driving the programs? Is there any overall goals or? Well,
we always have overall goals, but I know our focus right now in the department is reentry. It's
reducing
critical.
recidivism.
Exactly.
Yeah.
People who come out of prison don't necessarily have the right support system. There's always support services out there, but they may not have the right ones that help them stay out of prison. And so they recidivate and they go back into prison. And that's just, it's unacceptable, really. And so our focus, really everything that we do should be focused on reentry, because 97%, give or take a percentage point there, everybody's coming back. They're going to return to all of our communities throughout Idaho. And so
why wouldn't you want those folks to have
the minute that somebody
the
comes
skills?
into under our jurisdiction, we should be focusing on the day that they get out and helping them stay out. And so there's a number of programs that we have, number of partnerships that we have around the state with community organizations, with churches, other faith-based groups. The mentoring program, Free to Succeed, is another feather, another tool, I guess, in our toolbox that we can use. But it really is focused on that reentry and keeping them out.
Sure.
Or they're keeping themselves out. We're just helping them. Yes.
Keeping them from returning. Can you explain the Free to Succeed program?
Absolutely. Love to.
Yeah.
So it's really simple. And sometimes, we're a state agency, a very large state agency. And so sometimes when we simplify things, it tends to confuse people because we're very good at developing policies and procedures and all that. So my goal with the Free to Succeed program was to develop a program that was really simple. And it really was, and it's not new. I mean, mentoring's been around forever, but it really was matching somebody in the community that somebody is being released to. So if we have somebody at ISCI that's being released to Coeur d'Alene, we want to find a mentor in Coeur d'Alene that can help them once they hit that community, from finding a food box or food sources to finding clothing that they might need, to helping them find a job, to taking them by the hand and going to church with them if that's what they choose, to introducing them to their pro-social network. And
Sure.
I mean, it runs the gamut. Really, mentors can do a lot of things that our staff cannot do. You'll never see a probation and parole officer going to church with somebody on their caseload, but a mentor certainly can do that. So it really has opened up the door wider to invite those people in the communities around Idaho that want to help, but don't necessarily want to go into a prison and do volunteer work or something like that.
Great. Yeah. Kind of their jobs more on the outside.
Yeah.
I have so many questions. Yeah.
And one of the unique things about this program, there's a few unique, but one of the unique things is that we allow people who are on supervision in the communities to be mentors to others that are coming out.
Sure.
So that was a concept that we didn't really think about, but I wanted to make sure that we gave those that are doing well on parole or well on probation, give them an opportunity to give back somehow. And we have a number of mentors that are on supervision with permission from their PO that they're in a good spot, they're doing well on supervision, and all they want to do is help somebody navigate those obstacles that they navigated when they got out. And so it really is.
Pay it forward.
It's hugely successful.
Is it so the mentors are primarily folks who previously incarcerated as well?
No, mentors come from all walks. I have college students that are mentors. I have a number of well-known national, I don't know if you'd call them celebrities, well-known people in the media that are mentors.
Sure.
We're in the middle of an election year, so I'm not sure how far I should say. But we have some folks that are mentoring that are, I mean, it really is business people, retired. It doesn't matter. Anyone can mentor.
So anyone who's interested can. Yeah. Is there an application process?
Yeah, there is. It's on our website.
Yeah.
It's on our website, pretty easy to get to. It's only 2 clicks deep into our website. They fill out that application, and we don't do background checks because a lot of them are on supervision and they wouldn't pass a background check, but they're not coming into our facilities. They're not coming into a secure facility to mentor. So they're in the community. So really doing a background check, what would that do?
Sure.
So we want people who just want to help and give back. Everybody can mentor. I always say, if you can back in 2008, if you could fog up a mirror, you could get a home loan. That's how I see it with a mentor. If you can fog up a mirror, you can be a mentor to somebody.
If you're alive. Like I said, that's super cool. So as far as the programs, how have they impacted the atmosphere at the site or in IDOC, in the correctional institutions?
Let me speak to volunteers, because there's 2 separate volunteer groups that we're working with. One is the mentors. Those are all volunteers that work strictly in the community. And then we have volunteers that come into our facilities, and they provide religious services, they provide other activities, arts, all kinds of different activities for our residents to participate in. And those all are geared towards helping them develop skills that will be beneficial to them once they are released.
Sure. Social skills.
Even while they're on the inside, too, absolutely. Money management, all that kind of stuff. School, tutors. So the last couple of years during COVID, we've had to restrict our volunteers from coming into our facilities. And that really has been a palpable change to our population. They want those volunteers back. Having volunteers come in and do whatever activities that they're doing that they can participate with, it brings a sense of normalcy to those folks in prison from the outside. Not only that, but religious service is a constitutional right, and that's how we provide most of our religious services to the population, is through volunteers from all different types, every religion you could think of. And so there is, we need to get our volunteers back in the facilities as soon as possible.
So there's still sort of a moratorium on that right now?
Until at least January.
Okay.
Yeah, until at least January, and then we'll reassess and see where we are.
That's hard.
You know, safety always comes first.
Sure.
And a warden that I used to work with, Randy Blades, has always said safety is never convenient. But thank goodness our volunteers are still kind of hanging in there. They want to come back in. They're just waiting for that time that we can let them back in. So we've had a lot of volunteers that have turned to mentoring. So at least they're still being able to mentor in the community and help those that are, and provide some service to them when they're coming out.
That's awesome. Yeah, still finding a way to get involved.
Yeah.
How does, is that any different as far as the process to get involved in that, as since you're going into the
it is
institution?
Different. Yeah, there's an application for volunteers, and I've turned that process off until January, because we don't want people applying to be a volunteer only to tell them we don't know when you're going to be able to come in. So I turned that process off. We're going to turn it back on when we get to that point, but there's an application process, and we do conduct background checks on our volunteers that come into our secure facilities, into our facilities.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I was just curious.
And there's different set of rules, obviously, when you're going into a prison than going into Walmart with your mentee.
Like, rates. Rates. One of our staff asked about a specific volunteer organization, StoryLink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Would you mind explaining what that is?
I would love it.
Yeah.
Love to. So my oversight of volunteers and religious services has been split by my time that I served in Pocatello as a warden. So out of that realm for a couple of years, but before I went to Pocatello, I talked to Mary Ann Kogis. I know she's not going to mind if I mention her name, but Mary Ann Kogis, she's just a dear, dear woman. And she came to me and said, Jeff, we do this program, StoryLink. And at the time, I think she was doing it in 1 or 2 facilities. I went down to watch her and a couple of volunteers that she was with at ISCI do this program, because I wanted to see how it functioned and all that kind of stuff. And as I sat there, it almost brought me to tears, because I was watching this resident talk about why StoryLink was important to him. And it was because, so that the program is that they get all these books donated to Mary Ann Kogis or to the group, and they take these books into the facilities, and the resident, either a mother or a father, sometimes it could be an uncle or brother or whatever, reads this book as if they were reading it to their child. And they record it. And then they put the CD in the book, they take the book out, and they mail it to the family. They mail it with permission. Everything is by permission and whatnot. And so the experience that this gentleman was saying is that when he called, or when he was able to talk to the child that he was reading the book to, the mother says, yeah, she about wore that CD out, because every time she'd go to bed, she would pop that CD and listen to her dad read the same story over and over again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, oh my gosh. It's those little things sometimes. We tend to overcomplicate a lot of stuff and think, hey, we got the next best idea or the next big idea. But sometimes we just need to back up and say, it's the little things like that that really help make those connections. And when you can make those connections heart to heart or soul to soul or whatever,
Sure.
rather than just up here, that's really where you're going to see changes happen in people. And for this big guy who was all tattooed up and he was like the epitome of a resident or an inmate that you would see on TV.
What you'd think of, yeah.
Tears in his eyes and telling that experience. I was like, man, this is... So I told Marianne, we've got to get this in every single facility. And so we rolled it out. We got StoryLink into every one of our facilities. And then I bounced over to Pocatello for a couple of years. But it's still going on. I mean, obviously they can't come in during COVID, but it's still going on. And
so volunteers bring the recording
Yeah.
equipment, the books, and
Yeah.
everything to
Yep.
inside the site when they're visiting. And
Yeah, we're trying to change it, technology. And it's we're always worried about things coming in from the outside. And so we're trying to go digital, and they got some changes into digital recording and things like that, so it'll be a lot quicker and easier. Even maybe talking about YouTube so they can watch Dad on the YouTube instead of... So there's things in the works.
because
Can't wait to get it back, though.
That's, like I said, that's amazing. How do you celebrate holidays?
Which one?
Well, it's so we'll pick the winter holidays.
Yeah.
We'll pick Christmas and
Yeah,
the winter holidays.
You guys, Mark Rennick.
Yep, we do.
Mark Rennick's a good friend of mine. We have worked together for a long time, and I'm not going to give you his whole bio because I think you have it. But one of the things that Mark did for a long time is that we had cookies for Max. And way back when, we would have just a ton of people. It was usually the LDS church because they just marshaled their volunteers like that.
Sure.
And they would put out the assignment that we need 10,000 cookies. And so they were in their kitchens making cookies, and they'd end up with like 10,000 dozen cookies, and they'd bag them all up, and then we would deliver those, or Mark would, and a couple of volunteers that work with him would deliver those cookies personally to each resident at IMSI, our maximum security facility, with a nice little note saying, "Hey, we're thinking of you. We know it's a tough time. You're without your family." Something like
And the
that.
volunteers
Really
would
make it
write the
personal,
notes
yeah.
and attach them.
And then they would give cookies to all the staff, and it became, over the years, it became something that everybody looked forward to at Christmas. Then COVID hit, and we shut everything down.
Yeah.
And last year we did cookies, and I wanted to expand it to not just IMSI, but we wanted to hit all the facilities. And last year we were able to add 2 more facilities, and we ended up calling it Cookies for Corrections.
Oh, cool.
This year,
Okay.
I just talked to Mark yesterday, and he has got all of these cookies that are donated, because now we do prepackaged cookies.
You order them from...
Yeah, we have people just donate like Chips Ahoy and Grandma's cookies and all this, because the thought of not knowing what was actually in the cookie and then bringing that in. I mean, you can see we were always thinking about safety and not sure, peanut butter
Safety and
allergies, all
security.
that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So it was best to move to prepackaged cookies.
Sounds good to me.
But the donations are just flooding in, and now Mark and his some volunteers are going to go out and make sure that all of the facilities and in Pocatello are going to be provided with some cookies for Christmas.
So if someone wanted to get involved in that, what's the best way to...
Get a hold of Mark Rennick at St. Vincent de Paul.
Okay. So is there a hub, a Facebook page, or anything like that where people can find out about those opportunities, or is it really in the know?
I think St. Vincent de Paul here in Boise, Reentry conference or something like that.
That's cool. Yeah, no, I just, I know our audience are the folks who would get involved in those sorts of things. And I, to make the connections here, that's traditionally how pretty much all holiday celebrations were handled here at the site, except for Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. Thanksgiving, they grew their own turkeys and vegetables and kind of utilized their own kitchens. But if they were celebrating Easter or the 4th of July or anything like that, usually it was a volunteer organization.
Yeah, and that is the case still. We have obviously different faiths, different traditions, different celebrations, And usually around the Christmas, the holiday season, we'd get a lot of concerts. We'd have a lot of choirs that would come out to the facilities and put on a Christmas show and things like that. So it was really good. And obviously, it's just that's something that our residents really, really miss, especially around this time of the year.
Do they have to make it non-denominational, or is that?
It depends. I mean, we have, like the LDS faith, they come out and they have a choir, and it's typically anybody.
Whatever group wants to do it.
Anybody who wants to come. It's just...
The residents can choose to attend. Or
Catholic Church does it too. And so they'll do, Catholic Church has done Mass at Christmas before, and the Jewish holiday, Hanukkah. And so they're represented. All of them are represented. Cool. When we have those volunteers coming out, that's how critical it is for that.
Do you work with program managers at other corrections facilities in other states?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Actually, when I started the Free to Succeed program, I did a presentation. Idaho IDOC hosted a national meeting with probation and parole chiefs, folks in probation and parole departments. And at the time it was David Birch, who was our probation and parole chief, but he invited me to do a presentation about Free to Succeed. And so I came down, did the presentation, and then Michigan has really wanted to put a mentoring program in place, but they just couldn't figure out how to get over some of these obstacles that traditionally we run into as a corrections agency. Protect the public. Well, protect the public can mean so many different things to so many different people. And so I've been consulting with Michigan Department of Probation and Parole about how to put a mentoring program together. And I've been on many conference calls, and they just keep asking me all these questions. Jeff, how do you get away with letting people who are on supervision become mentors?
Sure.
And so I've worked with them. Arizona has reached out to me about wanting to put a mentoring program together. There are states that have mentoring programs, but they're not set up the way ours is. Ours
Sure.
is a little bit unique.
I love it when Idaho's at the cutting edge of things.
Yeah, and then as far as volunteers, I'm part of my colleagues. There's one of me, I guess, my position in every department of correction. And so we have a little group, it's like 50 of us
Sure.
that bounce ideas off of each other. And how are you doing this in your state? And how are you doing this?
Right.
And how do you do this? And, when they hear how we do it, I start getting a lot of questions because we tend to do things, I'll just say it, we tend to do things better here in Idaho.
Do you feel like that's just because there's a lot of public buy-in? Do you think that a lot of public support, or?
I think that, there's just so much. Sometimes I think about that quite a bit. I just think we're always looking about how to improve what we do. I really do. And it is different, like corrections, Department of Corrections on the East Coast, big Jewish population, very heavy, with Jewish offenders, residents. And so they may have, for example, a whole kosher kitchen set up in at each facility.
Sure.
There's no way that we could do that in Idaho. One, we don't have that huge of a population of Jewish residents.
Right.
So, we tend to do what we can. We can't provide everything, but we certainly provide what we can for those who are of that faith. And so sometimes it is just geographically where we sit. Idaho is pretty independent, individual, and so we just kind of do what we do. I think we have a great leadership in our department that is very forward-thinking. We look at what other states are doing and then ask, how can we do that better? So it's pretty cool to be a part of that.
So let's say, there is a need for kosher meals or or an increased need. Is typical protocol to put out a feeler then to the networks to see if
I can reach out to them and say, hey, if you don't have a large Jewish population, how do you take care of the ones that you do have? And so I'll get feedback. We get ideas. A few years ago, we did have to start providing more of those kosher meals, which I think is a good thing. And so what we were able to do is find some prepackaged kosher meals, and we can purchase those from a vendor, and we can have those available for those that are Jewish. And so that's one way that we can meet that need. We also have a selection of menu, like a vegetarian meal, and different types of meals that they can select from. Most of the time, those will meet the needs of their religious faith. Not all the time, and not 100%, but we do what we can. But finding those outside vendors to help supply, like the Olive Institute out of Florida, they send like for every Jewish resident, they'll send a big box of whatever they need for Hanukkah or whatever it might be for food. Wow. So or Passover, it's usually a Passover. They'll send a big box of stuff that is, and that works fantastic for us.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like I said, people are
incredible.
You
have to get creative sometimes.
People are incredible. But yeah, one of our staff also asked if you felt like these programs have reduced recidivism, and
I'm glad you asked that, because I have a piece of I have some data. We're all about numbers.
Take it. Yeah.
We're all about people, but the numbers do tell a story. So I did. We have a research department that runs a lot of our statistics and stuff in our department, and I reached out to them earlier this year. It was in February, and we base our recidivism rate on 3-year time frame in Idaho, which means that when someone is released from prison, when they hit that 3-year mark, all the research tells us that the chances of that individual doing something to screw up that 3 years of being successful is really, really, really low. Our recidivism rate is based on that 3-year time frame. If somebody comes out and within that 3 years they violate their supervision and they go back to prison, that's where that 35-36% comes from.
Sure.
Is that recidivism rate. So we want that number to go way down. Well, to zero. We want that to be zero.
Right.
So looking at the efficacy of the Free to Succeed program, a few years ago, about 3 years ago, I partnered with AmeriCorps. And AmeriCorps was able, because when I first started the program, it was just me. I was just running around the state, one person trying to set this program up around the state. Although it was great to do that, I knew it was not sustainable with one person. So the opportunity to partner with AmeriCorps came across my desk, and we were provided some AmeriCorps Vistas, which is Volunteer in Service to America. That's what VISTA stands for. But we were able to get 8 individuals in each of our districts around the state and put an AmeriCorps Vista person in that state. So up in Coeur d'Alene in District 1, we have an AmeriCorps Vista up there that focuses on that local Free to Succeed mentoring in that district. And so that's been very helpful to have that around the state. So from that point of getting some help to this 3 years later, that's what these numbers will reflect, because I wanted to make sure that we had 3 years under our belt.
Gotcha.
So that was a long lead up to the, to the number.
Makes sense, yeah.
So, so our research group put this together, and in the first year of having the Vistas on board, our recidivism rate for someone who has come out of incarceration and has a mentor was 11%, compared to the 35-36%, whatever. We'll just say 35%. It fluctuates. The second year, the second year of that 3-year time period, that recidivism rate was 12%. And then the third year, which would have been this past year, 2020, the recidivism rate for folks with a mentor in this Free to Succeed program was 3.6%.
Wow.
So if you add all those years
so you
up,
cut that in a tenth.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I had to go back to them about 8 times and say, "Are you sure? Are you sure?"
Mm-hmm.
So adding those 3 years up, the recidivism rates for each year, adding those up, our recidivism rate total is 27%. Compared to 35%. So absolutely, this Free to Succeed program, somebody having a mentor is effective.
Sure.
And then they broke it down, and that's compared to 36%. They did a comparison here, 36%. And then they broke it down by probationers and parolees. And are you familiar with what the difference is? Okay.
I mean, you might do a really quick.
So, yeah, probationer is one who is still under the jurisdiction of the court. We may house them in a facility up north in Cottonwood, but they're still under the jurisdiction of that judge. They'll go up and do a program, and they'll come back out, and they'll see their judge again. And the judge can put them out on the street on probation, or they can say, you didn't do so well, so I'm going to send you down to Boise. You're going to serve your time.
Sure.
They're also coming right out of the court. So a judge will see them and say, I'm going to sentence you to probation, and they'll put them right out the door. So those are probationers. So they're still under our jurisdiction because our probation and parole officers supervise both probationers and parolees. So looking at probationers, that number went down a little bit. 25% the first year, 12.2% the second year. Oh, I'm sorry, 12 the first year, 10% the second year, and 2.8% the third year. Combined, that's 25% recidivism rate during that 3-year period compared to 35%. For parolees,
cool.
Always a little bit higher for parolees because they're coming out of prison under supervision. 10% the first year, 15% the second year, 4% the third year, for a combined 29% recidivism rate. Still better than our average.
Yeah.
So historically, the recidivism rate hovers right around a combined 23%. And then if you focus on year by year by year, those numbers even look better. So what that tells me is that, yeah, we need to keep this going. The mentorship, and it is. I mean, people, all of our staff are sold on it. Our probation and parole officers are awesome. They work with the mentors when somebody on their caseload has a mentor, and it's just cool to see people change. And I could spend the next week with you talking about experiences where I have seen people literally change their lives because of a mentor that's been involved with their.
Can I ask you to tell one favorite story?
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
And he has given me permission
Okay.
to tell this story. And you probably know him. His name is Mark Person. And he had a life sentence with the possibility of parole. So he got a pretty severe sentence. And we always joke because he and I came into corrections about the same time. Our career started about the same time. And I always got to go home, though, and he had to stay there. But we kind of knew each other through the last 15 years, through the 15 years that he was incarcerated. And so for 15 years, just straight 15 years, he was in prison. And when he finally got an opportunity to be paroled, he knew he only had one shot. I mean, he had one shot at it, and if he screwed up, he was coming back, and he was never going to come back out because he had a life sentence. So he requested a mentor, and there's a process that they can go through to request a mentor. And he requested a mentor. Obviously, I knew Mark, so I went out to the facility, and I sat down with Mark, and I said, why, of all people, do you want a mentor? Because he had a support system on the outside. He had some steady income. He had family support, all that. And I was like, why do you need a mentor? It looks like you got it. And he says, Jeff, I don't know how to survive in the community. I don't know how to function in the community. I've been 15 years wearing all I can see is gunmetal gray and blue. They tell me what to wear. They tell me what to eat. They tell me when to go to bed. I mean, 15 years, can you imagine that?
Right.
And when he was telling me that, I was just like, man, I never thought of it that way.
I can see it. Yeah.
And I says, okay, well, what type of a mentor do you want? Do you want someone who's really engaged with your life on the outside, or do you want someone who you can call when you need to run a problem through or a challenge? He says, I just want someone who's older than I am, because he wanted somebody with some experience in life, and who can swing a 2x4 really hard when I need to get smacked upside the head. I'll never forget him telling me that. And it made sense to me. One shot. He had to make it work. Yeah. So we matched him with a mentor, and when he got out, he really didn't have a whole lot of contact with his mentor. But I'll never forget when he told me the experience when he first walked into a Walmart after he got released. And I mean, you imagine, we go into Walmart and it's a shock even now sometimes when we go into Walmart and see how people are dressed and how they act and all that kind of stuff. I can only imagine what he was feeling.
Insert some pictures. I'm kidding, anyway.
But he says it was a total sensory overload. The colors and the sounds and the choices and the people in there, and
Sure.
he says, for 15 years I never had to think about that stuff.
I hear that with people like immigrants.
Yeah.
Who come here and
Absolutely.
they're not prepared for what an American store
Yeah.
is like. And
see, we take it for granted.
Yeah.
We don't even think about those things. But this is why mentors are so critical, is that he says he almost had a nervous breakdown, but he called his mentor, whom at that point I don't think they'd even met yet. But he knew that he had a mentor. He called his mentor, and his mentor came down to the store and helped him walk through that store and say, you don't need to buy ramen anymore. you can buy this, and this is more healthier than this, and this is, that. And so it's
set for long-term success. Yeah.
It's helping them normalize the struggle. I heard that phrase yesterday, and I thought that's really what they do.
It's wise.
Our mentors help them normalize the struggle, because we all struggle with life.
Right.
But for them, this is not normal. And so mentors really do help them normalize. Somebody going back to church. I've had a number of mentors that have been able to just say, hey, why don't you come to church with me today? No matter what church it is. And I'm part of this men's group or this women's group, and let me introduce you to some people that can help. And I mean, it just really is awesome. But that has always stood out in my head, because that Mark's experience just epitomizes what mentors can do. He ended up becoming a mentor, and he mentors just a number of people coming out. I mean, the guy won't stop. Sometimes I have to pull him back and say, look, you really need to focus on you for a while.
Life.
But sometimes, but their hearts are so big, and the need is so great sometimes that I do find myself kind of pulling people back, saying, let's start with one or two, because they can mentor as many as they want. But sometimes we have to regulate that a little bit.
I mean, that's kind of why we're looking at this topic for our December Captivating Conversations, because it's a great topic of giving and of supporting one another and offering of yourself. And so
I'm sorry about the time here, but I was just thinking of another lady who left PWCC Pocatello. When I was warden over there, I knew her. And when she was in prison, she was not a very nice individual. We'll just leave it at that. She was very vocal about some of the things she didn't dislike, and her family was very vocal about some of the things that was going on. And as a warden, you hear all that. But when I left Pocatello and came back over here, started the program, she had requested a mentor because she was getting out after 14 years straight, and she was in for, I think it was DUI, under the influence, but she had killed somebody with being under the influence and driving a vehicle, and so she had gotten a pretty stiff sentence. But she came out, and again, she had a lot of support, and she was working for her brother-in-law, and she had a place to live, and she really had a lot of support. So the curiosity in me, I wanted to find out, why do you want a mentor? You've got a lot of support, same questions. And she says, I need someone who understands what will trigger me in the community. I was like, wow, there again, never really thought about that kind of stuff. And so you have AA sponsors, you have all those types of people that will help you through that. But she wanted someone specifically who understood her addiction.
Sure.
Because she says, yeah, my family, they just told me to quit drinking. Why do you have to drink? Why do you keep drinking? That didn't help anybody. But she says, I want someone who is a recovering alcoholic, who understands the triggers and who I can call when I need to. So yeah, it was like a sponsor. But then again, a mentor can step in and do so much more that maybe a sponsor cannot. And that's just another, and she's still out. She's still out.
That's awesome.
So, I mean, again.
Yeah, how long ago was?
Oh, this was probably 4 years.
Oh, cool.
Had somebody up in Coeur d'Alene who works for North Idaho College. She's an instructor up there, and she's still mentoring. 5 years. She was one of my first mentors in Coeur d'Alene area, and took on a mentee up there, and they become best of friends.
Is it a high percentage of people, of mentors who are also alumni of the program?
Yeah, I would say probably, I'd probably say 40, 50% maybe. Yeah.
Cool.
And when you think about it,
Yeah.
it makes sense.
Right.
It really does make sense. Why not? The best mentor you could probably have is somebody who's been through all that garbage before you.
Right.
Can help you point
Yeah.
out the pitfalls that you. I mean, it really does boggle the mind, because when you think about it, I mean, it's just those little, like, going to the DMV. How many times have we stood in line at the DMV about ready to explode? Well, you put somebody in that situation that just got out of prison and is trying to get their ID or whatever. It could be one little thing that sets them off. We don't know. We don't know what those triggers are going to be. And
Sure.
typically, very generally I'm speaking, but typically, it's how we handle those problems and conflicts that come up that might separate us from somebody who is incarcerated. It's not always the case, but typically, it's how we deal with that. And so having a mentor that can stand in that DMV line and explain to them, this is the process, this is why it takes so long. I've been through the same process that you're going through. We just have to wait it out and do what we need to do. They're going to be able to work through that a lot easier with the mentor than by themselves.
Sure.
Cell
Speaking from
phones.
experience,
Cell phones
too.
is another thing. Oh my gosh, I could go on and on, Jason.
Well, I do want to. I mean, there was one question I wanted to make sure that we didn't leave off, just because it's it's beneficial. Is what what are the ways people can help right now? I know that January is when is your current set time for reevaluating on-site volunteers and those sorts of things. But yeah, just as of right now.
As of right now, in fact, I just sent this email out yesterday, and we have Mark Person is really helping in the community. He is establishing a place. It's not a thrift store, because thrift stores are a storefront. People anywhere can come into a thrift store. St. Vincent de Paul, Desert Industries. We got a ton of them around.
Uh-huh.
And but this is unique, because what he's trying to put in place is a place with clothes and other stuff that is needed for people coming out of incarceration. He's focusing on those folks only. And so they can come in and they can pick out whatever they need. And it's not anybody off the street. It's people coming out of incarceration. So he just sent me a list. I said, send me a list of what you need. And maybe I can get it out to the volunteer network that
Sure.
are wanting to do something. So the question is perfectly timed.
Awesome.
It's like towels, it's sheets, it's pillows, it's underwear, clean, brand new underwear, it's socks, it's those kinds of things that they need when they come out.
Where is he? Where is
this place is,
located
and I
out
don't
of?
know if he's at that point where he's ready to open the door or start doing that, but I know if someone shows up out of prison, he's going to help them.
Sure.
I know Mark, and that's exactly what he does. It's right across the street from the St. Vincent de Paul.
This community that we surround ourselves
It's huge.
are usually pretty great.
I've always said that, even when I wasn't doing the mentoring program, but even with just volunteers, I've always said there should never be somebody in the communities, and I've been in every community in this state. I literally have been in almost every community in this state, big and small. There's never a shortage of help. There isn't. We just need to know where to find it. We just need to know how to connect to that support service, if you will.
Yeah.
And so it's just, you continue to network, you continue to reach out, and people are going to go, oh yeah, I know this person over here who can ... And so no one should be coming out of our prison without the support that they need, whether it's from family, whether it's from church, whether it's from a community organization, whether it's from Mark, it doesn't matter. We just got to find those and connect them to them.
Well, I really appreciate
Can I
you coming
just,
out.
I
Yes.
want to add one more thing, because
Yes,
you had
please.
mentioned on there, how do they find out about, and
Yeah.
didn't you ask that question?
I did. Yeah, how would someone, if someone wanted to follow a page where they can find out about what opportunities there are, what needs are, if you have an optimal.
Well, I was just going to say, on
idea.
our IDOC website, there's a link there right on the front page that's volunteers and mentors. They can click on that, and there's a bunch of information. They can find the application to be a volunteer, the application to be a mentor is on there.
Cool.
More information about the Free to Succeed program. My contact information is on there, so they can get a hold of me.
So email you if they're willing
Yeah.
to say, hey, I want to help.
Yeah,
What's
absolutely.
the best way to
I
do
just
that
had
right now in my
I-
capacity? Yeah.
I had a gentleman that just reached out today. He's with it's a high school, it's an organization of high schoolers, but it's one oh my gosh, what's in it? One something. I can't remember. It's down on Myrtle and 11th. It's down there, and I'd have to find out what it is. But anyways, he reached out and says, hey, we're really interested in seeing how we can learn more about this mentoring program. I was like, that's really cool.
Yeah.
These high schoolers are getting involved. I love it.
And do you have to be 18?
Yeah.
So
Typically, the age for a mentor is 25. We put
Gotcha.
25 on there because, that's when the brain is, and plus some experience in life, a little bit of experience in life. But we've had some that are 21, 20, but yeah, 18. But there's other ways they can be. And so I reached back out to him. I said, man, I'd love to. I think I got a perfect project for you guys to work on.
Cool.
But it's just cool how they just come from everywhere.
What about the alternate, or folks who, were incarcerated as juveniles and then released? Are they able to
As juveniles,
have mentors?
Well, I don't know, because juvenile corrections is a completely different
Gotcha.
agency.
Sorry,
Yeah.
yes.
We just deal with adults.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Hopefully, they'll never get to where I will deal with them, but
Right.
just the adult corrections.
You're the Christmas future. No, well, thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely.
We, are incredibly grateful that you took time out
I appreciate you reaching out. I think it was cool. Who gave you? Oh, you found it on the web. Oh, okay. I was going to ask who your referral was. You're not going to give any names up, though, are you? No, I think it's cool. I think it's any opportunity to talk about what we do and the good thing that our mentors and our volunteers are doing. Man, I'm all there.
And we're working on a reimagining process of the site, as well as talking with Chad Page about more partnerships in our gift shop with hobby crafts and things like that. So we look forward to continuing to work with you guys out here at the site.
And I just floated an idea to Anthony about, well, he can let you know, but I think it'd be cool to have a traveling exhibit from here. Take
To
it
go out there?
Show them what it used
That'd
to
be
look, what a real
awesome.
cell looks like.
Yeah.
We've done I was just telling him, one time we had a bunch of volunteers on Harleys. I brought in 75 Harleys into the gym at ISCI.
They did that here when the site was open, yeah.
Yeah, so it's, there's one of the things that I really do like about this department that we're doing is I always ask the question, why can't we do it? Give me a reason why we can't do it. Because I think for so long we've been saying we can't do that because. Well, give me the reason why let's do this unless you can come up with a reason that we shouldn't be doing it.
Right.
And there are some pretty legitimate reasons why we shouldn't do something. But let's start asking those questions. It's just ask the right questions instead of
Is the roadblock
exactly
unsurmountable?
Yep.
Yeah. 'Cause
And there's very little. Chad's a good guy. He's
right.
very forward thinking too, and his heart's in the right place, and I think his leadership is key.
Like I said, I think, and you as well. There's people with amazing abilities who are doing this stuff. So
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.